I decided if I don't sit down and make this video, I might never do it. So Rebirth has now existed for 15 years. And I have a lot of thoughts that I want to express about that, but I don't really know where to start. So I'm just going to start with what I wrote on Instagram and Facebook. I woke up to a realization. March 1st marked 15 years since Rebirth became a nonprofit. People ask why I don't talk as much about sustainability anymore. The truth is, after helping set up 200 plus community gardens in a state that has repeatedly cut education funding more than any state in 20 years, I had to accept something important. Sustainability isn't just growing food, conserving water, or producing energy. That's survival. Sustainability is a system. Turning off your lights isn't the problem. An energy industry monopolized to keep you from being a producer is. Growing food isn't the problem. Ensuring communities have consistent access to healthy food and not pricing them out is. In 2011, we set a goal to set up a garden at every school in Norman that could contribute to cafeterias or food pantries. We reached 25 of 27 schools before COVID hit. When the dust settled, many of those gardens struggled. We finished the final 2 schools in 2021 and completed the 10-year goal, but the garden network was no longer a network anymore. It was just gardens, waiting for someone to care enough to maintain them. Temporary impact was never the goal. Systemic change was. That mission hasn't changed. Rebirth wants to bridge the gaps between economic and environmental problems. Sustainability works when it's the priority, not capital. Rebirth is still active. We don't maintain gardens for schools anymore day to day. We train more intimately. We consult, we help teachers and community leaders build long-term systems and plans that should outlast us. The networks I'm trying to build now aren't projects. They're people with projects, people with purpose and passion. Because when everyone knows where they make the biggest impact, we can literally change the world. And so for me, Rebirth is a really weird existential topic. And the irony is all across social media, I'm known as Mr. Rebirth, which I started Rebirth because I came from an oil and gas family. I knew the solutions were in systemic change and that the industry that my family knew was a finite industry that had to be replaced if we were going to have any sort of economic and environmental sustainability. And I don't mean 10 years down the road or even 20 or 50, I mean for hundreds of years. Sustainability is the ability to maintain the resources you need without completely degrading the system to have it. And oil and gas is not that. It was never that. And I knew that when I was 10 years old. And when I was told that all of the ideas that I knew were possible, just not there yet, I took it as a personal challenge. But when I got to Oklahoma, my focus very quickly became how you bridge the gap between the people's understanding here of what they need and those macro solutions that I was talking about. And I wish I would have just started showing up in political offices at 20 years old and demanding legislation for renewable energy, even school agriculture, but I didn't. I went to school and I found a nonprofit in town that wanted me to garden with their kids, and then very quickly had schools starting to reach out. And then from there, we had homes and churches and community gardens and neighborhoods reaching out. And I realized one of the easiest gaps in a state like Oklahoma was agriculture. We live in a state that was affected by the Dust Bowl, but a state that also has faced significant issues when it comes to quality of food access, not just in rural areas or in poor communities, but in schools. So I realized that one of the big ways we could really make a difference was helping prove to a state like Oklahoma that this could be a systemic change by integrating agriculture into schools in a more advanced way. And I thought that's what we were doing. For a while, that is what we were doing. But then we got a community center in 2015. Trump became president. Resources became a lot more convoluted and for some reason confrontational. The ability to get resources for sustainability was now a political topic. And that had happened before in history, but it just happened that much more aggressively when Trump became president. Now the things we were working on was propaganda. We were setting up gardens all the time, everywhere we could. But we were always still primarily focused on not leaving Norman yet. We wanted to reach the goal of 100% participation in all the schools in Norman. And we were almost there when COVID hit. And then I had this choice to really decide what was going to happen? Or were we going to just, with very little resources, run around taking care of gardens that weren't even being used in the right ways? Or were we going to focus on helping the teachers that were most passionate know how to maintain and expand their systems, so when this stuff happens in the future, they could continue doing what they need to do? And sustainability can only be a priority when you have a system that is prioritizing everybody involved. Capitalism will never be sustainable. It never has been. Until you have equity within the idea of what is a priority in a social system beyond profit and capital, resources and environmental sustainability and biodiversity will always play a back burner to that profit and capital. And so that's why today I don't talk about sustainability a lot. I talk about fascism. I talk about the fact that our democracy has eroded for the last 50 years, and there is a very specific reason where we are today. One of those reasons is not understanding what environmental sustainability means on an economic level when you are destroying democracy through capitalism. And I know that sounds like a lot, but my biggest goal to you guys, my biggest goal right now is to start writing, to start talking to you more. I owe it to you, as somebody who has worked on these things for the last 2 decades, to express more authentically those thoughts, those ideas, and those solutions that we could do as a community, as a society, and as individuals. So that's my goal through 2026. I hope you'll join me on that journey. As I've ended the vast majority of my videos since I was 20 years old, I hope you guys will all agree that one motto we need today is to dream big and act bigger.